You punks. 3 deck profiles in a week, all because I've been bullied. Not really. Y'all have asked for it over on Twitter and in the comments and in the live chat of this week's episode of the Gus One podcast. I talked about this deck being teched out. Of course, it is the Hisuian Zoroark VSTAR. 3 deck profiles in a week. Hasn't happened in a hot minute, so this is for you guys. Thanks for being here. Welcome to the Sheep Squad. Stupin as always, rocking it out with some physical cards. You know, don't forget to smash that like button for physical Pokemon cards for deck profiles instead of TCGO or TCG Live. Show your support. Anyways, though, I talked about this on the podcast, and the live chat blew up, and then people started tagging us on Twitter asking for the list, and hey, when will this be out, so on and so forth. If I feel like editing crazily, I'll throw a bunch of those comments up in the video. I'm probably not going to do it. That's a lot of effort. Now, again, this deck is not tier 1. It's maybe tier 2, tier 2.5. You can still win games, though. It can be fast and aggressive, and I think some of the tech cards I've put in this really do edge out a few awkward matchups. So, after a minute and a half of rambling, without further ado, let's get into the deck profile. We are rocking a 4-3 line of Hisuian Zoroark. We'll start with the V, 210 HP, and the attack Void Return for free, no energy. You do 30 damage, and then switch to another Pokemon on your bench, and then Shadow Cyclone for 3 to do 130, and then move an energy from this to another Pokemon on your bench. I've never attacked with Shadow Cyclone, and I probably never will. And then we have the V-Star of the show, haha. Or if you've played Scarlet and Violet, the Hasta la V-Star. Okay, never mind. I'm done with the bad jokes. Anyways, 270 HP in this thing with the deck taking Curse for 2 colorless, aka a double turbo. 50 times the amount of Pokemon that you have damage counters on. So, 6 Pokemon in play, they all have damage counters on them, at least 1 damage counter. It's 300 damage, and of course the double turbo takes that back to 280. Choice Spell puts you up to 310, knocking out Mew VMAX, which is pretty much the only VMAX people are playing currently. So keep that in mind. And of course you have Phantom Star, the V-Star power here, to discard your hand and draw 7 cards. It's basically like a research. So this deck is just super aggressive and is able to get stuff done in that regards. Continuing on, of course, you've seen the DLT in this list before, the Princess's Curtain. As long as it's in the active spot, your opponent plays a supporter card, they cannot basically boss up or hit your basic Pokemon. So as long as you don't evolve early on, you can, Void Return into the DNC and let them take this out for a single prize. It also has the attack Spike Draw for 20 to draw 2 cards. I've done it before. It doesn't happen too often. You're not going to do any damage, though, if you attack with Spike Draw. You're just literally just wasting energy to draw 2 cards. It's like a desperation move. Next, we've got 2 copies of the Gengar with Netherworld Gate, the ability that lets it come out of the discard pile and onto your bench in exchange for putting 3 damage counters onto it. So this is just another way to ensure that you have Pokemon with damage on them so you can actually do damage with Ticking Curse. Pretty straightforward. It has an attack. We don't play any Psychic Energy, so we're just going to disregard that. Just keep in mind that it's got a 2 retreat cost, 120 HP. Alright, moving along. Of course, we have to play Dunsparce to protect our Zoroarks from weakness. Dunsparce is also in Lugia and a bunch of other things. This could eventually get cut out if you don't expect fighting stuff, so that could be another tech space, or this could be your 4th Zoroark V-Star. But I'm always afraid, and it just feels okay to have this in the deck anyways. Another one you've definitely seen before is Manaphy here for Wave Veil to protect your benched Pokemon from damage. You're already damaging your own Pokemon when you put them in the play because we play Gape Drop Bog. We'll get to that. So to make it harder on your opponent from, using Raikou or whatever else that can snipe the bench, Manaphy is definitely a must to protect the little guys. And you've definitely seen these before, but we've got 2 copies of Crobat V in here for Dark Asset. You bench it down, you draw your hand up to 6. It's a damage sponge basically as well for, you put it down and you get hit with the bog and fill your hand back up. So again, this is a fast and aggressive deck. You're going to want to take KOs. All right, now to the tech Pokemon. Oranguru is insane in this deck. Primate Wisdom allows you to swap a card from your hand to the top of your deck, and in this case, because of the V-Star power and you potentially playing Research in the same turn, you're going to go through 14 cards. There might be something you want to save to that second hand or that third hand, and Oranguru is going to be able to help you do that. So that way, if you open up with like, oh crap, I have to discard my hand, but I don't want to discard a V-Star, I'll grab Oranguru, put it on top, and then I'll discard and then draw back into that V-Star. Same thing with your double turbo or whatever else key pieces that you need. Oranguru is going to help you kind of keep your resources in your hands. Now we get to the spice. We've got Jinx from Silver Tempest. And Jinx doesn't come alone. We're playing yet another Psychic-type Pokemon with it. Radiant Alakazam. We'll start with the Jinx. Jinx has 100 HP, and this is from Silver Tempest. So you have the ability Selfish Lips. Jinx has big lips. It loves to kiss you. Oh my god, I can't talk sometimes. Anyways, though, so Selfish Lips. If this is knocked out by damage from an attack from your opponent's Pokemon V, your opponent can't take any prize cards for it. So in some situations, if you're stuck, this is another void return target. So you can void return your Zoroark out into a Jinx, and then they have to have the boss to deal with it. But this also has the attack Psychic Assault for 2 colorless, which fits the double turbo theme for 10+. This attack does 10 more damage for each damage counter on your opponent's active Pokemon. So in some situations, if Zoroark whiffs the KO, which has happened in the past and with most lists, and if you've played Zoroark before, you definitely whiffed a KO by like 20 damage or whatever. Jinx can clean up. But what makes Jinx even easier to pop off is, your opponent is benching Pokemon down with the Gapejaw Bog. We'll just go over this really quick. Whenever either player plays a Pokemon from their hand to their bench, put 2 damage counters on that Pokemon. So this is how you set up your damage for Tick Curse, but also this softens up your opponent's Pokemon a little bit as long as the stadium sticks. That's why we play 4 copies of it. But the real tech piece in here now is Radiant Alakazam. 130 HP Radiant Pokemon. You can only play 1 Radiant in your deck. Painful Spoons is the ability on this thing. Once during your turn, you may move up to 2 damage counters from one of your opponent's Pokemon to another one of their Pokemon. So because you're constantly softening up their Pokemon with Gapejaw Bog, you can move the damage counters from their Pokemon to their active that you need it to be on for Alakazam. So in the past, this deck would play Radiant Hawlucha. That way you could hit into the VMAXs. But again, the only VMAX in the game that people are playing right now on a consistent basis is Mew. 6 Pokemon in play and a choice belt. Zoroark can hit for 310 damage. Now, if they have Oricorio, blah, blah, blah. But most Mew decks aren't playing Fusion Strike energy, so you can Painful Spoons the damage off of, say, a Genesect and bring it up to the Mew to solve that interaction, which is really good. And also some situations, you hit 20 less because of your double turbo, and that could mess you up. This will let you move that 20 damage, basically, to solve the matchup and the tech numbers with the Zoroark. And in some situations, late game, after there's enough damage on board and you've been moving things around enough, that Jinx can come in and take a KO. And then they have to have a bosses out to get to one of your 2 prize Pokemon. And then if they knock this out, then they don't take any prize cards with a V. So you have tons of different little interactions and options, and I feel like these 2 cards really opened up the ability of what this deck can do. And I've even considered shoving in Psychic Energy now because we have the Gengars, the Deontay, and the Alakazam that can use 1 Psychic Energy. But again, this is just it's still a Zoroark deck. You want to attack with Zoroark, but Jinx really makes a nice option, and Radiant Alakazam really does open up the floodgates. Anyways, so stadiums, we play 4 of the Bog, and then let's move into the supporters. Of course, we're playing 4 Professor's Research, discard your hand, and draw 7. It's basically your V-Star power as well. Pretty straightforward. We're then rocking 2 copies of Marnie for the hand disruption. Shuffle your hands, put them on the bottom of the deck. They get 4 cards, you get 5 cards. You've seen it before. Then we've got 2 copies of Sharon's Care. In a world where they don't one-hit KO your Zoroark VSTAR and you have another V on the bench, Sharon's Care is going to preserve your energy cards and wipe all that damage off, and then you can just slap down a bog, re-bench it, and go from there. It's a really good pivot as well. Also, you can technically use this to pivot the Dunsparce in the Oranguru. There's been instances where people have bossed up the Oranguru and like chip damaged it or poked it with like Cram. So it would have 10 left or whatever, and then I would just Sharon's Care it up and out of the active after being able to use Primate Wisdom once or twice. And the best part about like a passive supporter like this is you can still V-Star power if you haven't already done so. And then we've got 2 copies of Boss's Orders for our general gusting, and 1 copy of Serena just to discard and draw. So we can discard Gengars or whatever pieces we don't need, like Dunsparce or Manaphy, and then draw our hand back up to 5. Feels pretty good, and it also gusts up a Pokemon V. Continuing on, we've got the 4 Quick Ball and 4 Ultra Ball package. Pretty straightforward. Discard cards, get Pokemon. We got 2 Incense, find evolutions. So in this case, Gengar also. Then we've got 3 copies of Trekking Shoes, kind of adding a little bit more speed. Look at the top card, either put it in your hand or discard it. Also synergizes really well with the Oranguru. If you have a card in your hand that you don't really want, you can, say Gengar, and you don't have a way of discarding it, but you have Trekking Shoes. You can put the Gengar on top of the deck with a Primate Wisdom, and then just discard it with Trekking Shoes and dig deeper into the deck. We also have 4 copies of Damage Pump. This lets us move up to 2 damage counters from one of our Pokemon to our Pokemon in any way we like. So if you have 2 Pokemon with no damage counters and you are earlier on, you bench something with Gape Jaw Bog, you can move those off and go. Gengar comes into play with 3. You can move 2 of them off on 2 other Pokemon, and then Gengar has 1, and now you have 3 Pokemon with damage, doing at least 150 damage with Tick and Curse. Also, this is really good to force the Sharon's Care situations as well. So like extra brain plays is, again, we're using and abusing Oranguru. You damage pump onto it or off of it, and then you're able to Sharon's Care or so on and so forth. So there's a lot of cool interactions with these and things like Oranguru and Sharon's Care and whatnot. And for retreating options, we've got 2 copies of Air Balloon. Everything in here has a 2 retreat costs or less, so keep that in mind. Air Balloon is going to help you pivot and move around a little bit easier. We've got 1 copy of Lost Vacuum. This is going to help you get rid of Big Charms, Choice Belts, Stadium cards, whatever causing you problems by lost zoning a card from your hand and then lost zoning that target. And then we've got a copy of Canceling Cologne. This has been in most of my Zoroark lists for a hot minute because I've always just been afraid of the Miltank. I know now we have access to the Jinx and the Alakazam, but it just doesn't feel good to take a KO with those on a single prizer. So, the Cologne is also just going to be beneficial in that situation. It's always a burnable card too, for the most part. So if you're just trying to thin your hand down and draw a card with Crobat, even in a dead matchup, you could just burn Canceling Cologne. And then we've got 2 copies of Choice Belt for damage modifiers. I'm going to shove those over here. Increase our damage into Pokemon V for 30. And then we've got a big Parasol, definitely needed to protect ourselves from Sableye. And just a handful of other things like Yveltal, as well as even if somebody decides to play Giratina V-Star in this format, Big Parasol is going to help you sway those matchups. And last but not least, 4 copies of Double Turbo to fill your attack requirements for Zoroark and Jinx. In a perfect world, I would shove a Silene in here somewhere so I can continue to use these. You could honestly cut one of the Sharon's Care for a Silene, and I feel like that'd be really cool. You could even potentially cut a Shoes for a Palpad in that instance too. That way, since you have the 1 and the 1 and the 1 Serena, you'd be able to reuse them if needed. And of course, the Oranguru protects everything. And I honestly even wouldn't be opposed to somehow finding room for an Ordinary Rod to guarantee, since we're only playing a 4-3 Zoroark line, to get those Pokemon back into the deck. But this is the list that I've been rocking. It's been a lot of fun. It feels really good. The Jinx and Alakazam opens up a lot more plays than you expect until you sit down and actually mess with it and play with it. But let me know what you think down below in the comments. Of course, if you came from all the gust of wind talk on this, let me know down in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, and subscribe for more Pokemon content, and to let YouTube know that, people should watch these videos. That it really does help out a lot. Your likes and subscriptions really do help fuel these videos and keep me going. More than 50% of people that watch the average video aren't subscribed to the channel, and it only takes a couple seconds. So just hit that big red button below the video, and it would mean the world to me. But that's it. I'll see y'all in the next one next week. Let me know what you want me to cover if you're in the Discord. Hop in the Discord, put your deck in the deck dumper. Maybe we'll do a community deck next week. But that's it. I'll see you later. Peace out.
Got him!